Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be comparing the use of the words a and para in Spanish in a certain Spanish construction that gives students a tough time. They can't figure out which one to use and why. Sometimes it's a and sometimes it's para. You'll see what I mean in a second. Take a look at these two English sentences. I went to the store to buy bread. I bought the book to learn Spanish. In both of these sentences, I did something in order to do something else, right? I'm showing purpose. So it is that to part or in order to part that I'm talking about. Are we going to put a in there or para in there? Let's go ahead and translate those two sentences. I went to the store to buy bread. Fui a la tienda a comprar pan. There's a in there. I bought the book to learn Spanish. Compré el libro para aprender español. There's para in there. So why did I put a in the first one and para in the second one? That's what this video is about. I'm going to clear this up for you. It is actually pretty simple. Now, I already know there's some folks watching who are like, no, I think that first one should be para, Paul. I think you're wrong. You're already going to stop the video, right? Just wait. Let me give you some reassurance here, all right? Just in case I'm wrong. I might be wrong. I mean, it's not my first language. So let's take our two English sentences and plug them into DeepL, which I think is the best online Spanish translator around right now. Yes, much better than Google Translate. I've seen Google Translate come up with some weird stuff. So let's plug these in and see what it comes up with. Same translations. Fui a la tienda a comprar pan and compré el libro para aprender español. Yes, I am on the right track. It's not really that tough, folks. Let's go ahead and jump into it. For you folks who thought it was para right away, you're on the right track. And that's because in 99% of the instances, when you want to translate purpose, as in order to do something, you will use para. I got up early to pack my suitcase. Me levanté temprano para hacer la maleta. I could have substituted in order to. I got up early in order to pack my suitcase. If you can stick in order to in there, you know it's going to be para. Well, you often know. At least 99% of the time, you're going to be right. Here's another example. I'm reading this book to improve my vocabulary. Estoy leyendo este libro para mejorar mi vocabulario. Sí, para. Pretty safe so far, right? One more. I need time to reflect on this. Necesito tiempo para reflexionar sobre esto. Para again. So what happened here? Fui a la tienda a comprar pan. Why is that an a? Well, here it is. The tendency in Spanish, and I'm stressing the word tendency here, is that when you are going to a place to do something, we're usually going to express that with the verb ir, to go, or coming to a place to do something, often that's expressed with venir, to come. The tendency in Spanish is to use a before the purpose instead of para. See how slowly I said that? Because I really want that to sink in. Here's an example. I went to the park to read. Fui al parque a leer. See, it's a leer. Why? Because we're using ir. Fui is the preterite form of that, okay? I went to the park to do what was my purpose? To read. The tendency in Spanish is to use a there. Fui al parque a leer. Some of you may have noticed I keep saying tendency instead of rule. And you're asking yourself, okay, is this a rule? Is this some kind of grammatical rule that I need to follow? No, it is not. It is a tendency in the language. You know when you take tests and it's like which answer is best? That's this one, all right? You may hear a native speaker stick para in a sentence like that, and you know, they can do that, but that is not the most common response. Again, which one's the best answer? The most common answer. My advice for anyone learning the language is to stick to this tendency. It's easy to remember, easy to use, and you're going to sound correct to Spanish speakers. Let's look at a couple more examples. Juan came to my house to meet my cousin. Juan vino a mi casa a conocer a mi primo. Piece of cake, right? That's using the verb venir. I went to his house to watch the game. Fui a su casa a ver el partido. That's using ir, to go. I actually did a video on this same topic a couple months ago. If you follow the channel, you may have seen it. But I got a lot of questions from people who are unsure about something I was saying, and some folks actually asked some more advanced questions that I didn't address in that video. When I say advanced, they were asking about, okay, what if I have a more complex sentence and I have a subject change in it? And I know for some folks you're like, Paul, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. So I'm going to show you with examples, all right? Take a look at the examples on the screen that we already translated. What do you notice about them? Other than they're in Spanish, yes, they're in Spanish. They only have one subject, right? There is no subject change. We don't have two clauses with different subjects. One subject, they're very simple sentences. Here's an English sentence that shows purpose that has a subject change. I left flowers next to the bed so my wife would know that I love her. So what we have here is two clauses. I left flowers next to the bed. Who's the subject of that? I am. What was the purpose? How am I showing that? So, second clause, my wife would know that I love her. Who is the subject of the second clause? My wife. So we have a sentence showing purpose with a subject change. That is going to trigger this construction. Para qué plus subjunctive. When I say plus subjunctive, that doesn't mean that the next word after para qué has to be in the subjunctive. It just means the next verb, wherever it is going to be conjugated into the subjunctive mood. If you have no idea what the subjunctive is, just think of it this way. It's a different set of conjugations that you're going to need in Spanish in certain circumstances, that are triggered by things like para qué. I have a playlist called Subjunctive Triggers. I suggest you go binge watch that after this, and you'll learn all about the subjunctive. If you don't know the subjunctive, you're never going to master Spanish, so embrace it early on. Let's go ahead and translate this. Dejé flores junto a la cama para que mi mujer supiera que la quiero. In there we have our para que. Supiera comes from the verb saber, to know, and it's in the imperfect subjunctive. Now let's do one with ir to see if any of that changed, all right? I went to the store so my wife would have enough flour to make a cake. Fui a la tienda para que mi mujer tuviera suficiente harina para hacer un pastel. The verb used there is tuviera, which is the imperfect subjunctive of the verb tener, to have. And I'm saying mi mujer there for my wife, which is a really common thing to do in Spanish. That sounds terrible in English. I wouldn't do it in English, but it is common in Spanish. If you prefer, you could stick in mi esposa or whatever you want in there, all right? When we're talking about more complex sentences, meaning that we have two clauses, two different subjects, and the person in the first clause is doing something in order that something happens in the second clause. It doesn't matter if they went to a place to do that, they're already there, they came to a place. It is going to be the same construction, para que plus subjunctive. And that way, I guess it's easier, right? I mean, if you're good at the subjunctive, then you're like, oh, that's easy. I don't have to remember this little odd thing. If you're not good at the subjunctive, you're going to be like, well, that's pretty tough. For you beginners, don't get discouraged when you see complex sentences like that. I tend to do that a lot in my lessons. I start kind of basic and I'll get more advanced. You're going to get there, all right? It's a process. But one day down the road, maybe a month or two from now, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, you'll be at this level and you'll be like, hey, I think Paul talked about this. I'm going to go back and watch that video, and you'll be like, oh, I got it now. Well, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, just do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.